Wow. Wow. It's a pretty good sign for a season finale when you have to repeat the word wow for emphasis to describe it, right? But I don't know how else to put it. This episode of The Lowdown, by my estimation, contains one of the year's funniest scenes and one of the year's most ruthless and unflinching endings. It's got a shootout and a cookout. It shows a bad man having a change of heart and a good man having a change of heart too. There are even some fun wedding outfits. And it contains a quote from the Bible that needs to be drilled into the head of every man, woman, and child in America. A poor man is better than a liar. It's funny, isn't it? The Bible quotes self-professed Christians will select and wield as weapons to beat others with. Somehow it's always some old nonsense about being gay being bad or having slaves being good, never the countless verses about how rich people go to hell. We're talking people who get to go in. It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God. And say, actually, there was a really narrow gate in Jerusalem called the Eye of the Needle, but you could definitely squeeze a camel through there if you knew how. So it is with Pastor Mark and his rich, respectable congregants, real estate magnate Frank White and billionaire philanthropist Tripp. Though as an ex-con, it seems safe to assume Pastor Mark is at least passingly familiar with poverty. That's not what he's about anymore, of course. He's out to build a new kingdom of God, a white man's God, through which no one with brown or red skin may ever pass. To do it, he lies through his teeth, of course. So does Frank, so does Tripp, so does Betty Jo Washberg, Frank's longtime co-conspirator. She even left the door unlocked for her poor gay husband Dale's killers the night he was murdered, though the idea was just to scare him. It was a Fredo in Godfather 2 situation. They lie to the world, they lie to each other, and at least in the case of Frank and Betty Jo, who would never countenance murder, good heavens no, they're lying to themselves. But there's no lying to a dogged truth seeker. Lee Raybon is on the case with his new ally, Donald Washberg's security chief, Marty. Of course, the two men barely escape Pastor Mark's compound with their lives, and Marty gets shot in the leg, but that's nothing some impromptu first aid and some pain medication. It's not Advil. It's like Advil, won't cure. Oh, I'm sorry, did I say pain medication? I meant, and I quote, bovine vagina muscle relaxant. If there's a line that made me laugh harder in this whole show, I can't remember it. Anyway, after Marty sleeps off his medication, it's for cow pussy. And Lee confronts Betty Jo, secretly recording the whole thing. Lee writes his big story, and Marty makes his big move. The PI drives his employer and friend Donald Washberg to the lively offices of Lee's one-eyed editor Cyrus. Rarely have people looked more uncomfortable around a barbecue as Donald looks here, and I'm including movies in which people are burned at the stake, where Lee is waiting for him. In a quietly devastating scene, Lee presents Donald with his blockbuster story, due out any moment, the whole sordid tale of who killed Dale Washberg. Turns out Donald loved him despite their quarrels and legitimately had nothing to do with his murder. He was just another pawn being moved around by the same players. Frank, Tripp, Pastor Mark, Betty Jo. None of the above intended to kill Dale, just scare him. But when you employ incompetent racists, bad things happen. Sad that Trump hadn't been elected before all this. Or those guys could simply have joined ICE, where wages have never been higher, but standards of intelligence, fitness, and basic human decency have never been lower. At any rate, you can see in Donald's teary eyes a look we haven't seen in the real world in a while. You catch glimpses of it, maybe, in the mainstream Republicans who have not fully drunk the MAGA Kool-Aid, but feel constrained by their fascist peers, donors, and supporters to go along with everything His Majesty King Donald and his court of scheming advisors tell them to. In Donald's eyes, though, the look goes one step further. He knows he's being used for evil ends by people so far to the right, even he finds them loathsome. But unlike the dog-walked GOP senators and representatives who explain behind dead eyes why it's okay that the former president demolished half the White House in 48 hours because he was mad about some protests, Donald means to set right what has gone wrong. I doubt he'd be your favorite politician or mine, but once he learns of Dale's intention to give the family land to its rightful owners, Arthur Williams and his grandson and heir Chudo, he goes through with it. In a scene that's touching for its apparent sincerity, Donald gives the land back, proclaims Oklahoma Indian Territory, and asserts that the state simply doesn't run right unless its government treats the native nations within its borders as sovereign and equal partners. The speech brings tears even to the eyes of Lee Raybon. Mine too. The rest is mostly wrap-up, all's well that ends well stuff. There's even a wedding at the end, like this is a Shakespearean comedy. Lee's ex ties the knot with his attendance and blessing. Lee and his kid Francis patch things up when she insists on remaining an active part of his life, since she knows that for all his faults he's good, and it's insulting to her intelligence to act like he isn't. Lee's white van finally dies and he walks home in slow motion, black-suited and sunglassed like Reservoir Dogs, to the bustling little block he calls home. "It's a good day to die, baby!" His absolutely useless security guard Waylon randomly screams in celebration. The logo appears. Cut to credits. But only briefly. In the season's true final scene, we just watch a long, static shot of a washed-up Betty Jo Washberg, going by Betty Jo Woodrow now that her name has been ruined by Lee's reporting, do karaoke. And now we learn why that rapturously romantic and sexy sequence a few episodes ago in which she and Lee perform never actually included the sound of her singing. She's terrible, dude. She can barely carry a tune, and she's so messed up over her involvement in the deaths of Dale and Alan and Arthur and Frank. Oh, yeah. He gets shot to death behind the wheel at an intersection by Dale Dickey's character after Lee tells her son was tarred and feathered to death by his Nazi pals, that she spends half the song crying. That's how the show leaves us, with a hard cut in the middle of her teary, terrible attempt to get through Waylon Jennings' song about going back to the basics of love. Betty Jo doesn't get to finish her song. She closed the door on that possibility long ago. What I take away most from Sterling Harjo's terrific detective story, I think, are the performances. Particularly in this final episode, veteran actors Ethan Hawke, Keith David, Kyle MacLachlan, and Jean Tripplehorn can tell a whole lot of story very subtly. The way they hold their shoulders, blink their eyes, slump in their seats, while making amorous mooing noises. It only occurs to me now how cool it is that all of these actors can be described as of a certain age, and are the undisputed stars of this thing anyway. For his troubles, Lee gets to walk home in slow motion, looking like a badass despite constantly being one step ahead of disaster. For her troubles, Betty Jo gets to bomb at karaoke, crying through a sad love song because she knows Lee was right to call her a bad person, and because being a bad person didn't get her anything in the end. Even her daughter Pearl has turned against her. Lee gave her Dale's letters to make sure of that. She may have mocked his comment about it being better to be a poor man than a liar, but who's crying now? May all the liars cry soon enough. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more.